I joined in 1972, in April of that year, at the beginning of April. I moved into the temple. In May, I visited my parents to tell them of what my intentions were. Then I returned back to the temple. And shortly after, within a week of returning back to the temple, a phone call came for the temple president. And when the phone rang, I happened to be standing right next to him when he answered the phone. So in essence, I had only really been at the temple 3 or 4 weeks. So here he was. He was speaking to another devotee in Los Angeles, which was the Western headquarters at that time. And he was informed that Srila Prabhupada would be coming to Eugene, Oregon. Now, at this time, I was living in Edmonton. This is some 2,000 miles distance from Eugene, Oregon. The temple president was phoned to be told that Prabhupada was coming there. And the temple president's reply was, "We're coming." And as he was talking, he waved to one of the other devotees, one of the senior devotees that were there, and indicated to him that everyone should pack up their things and get ready to get in the car. And within an hour, everybody was in the car. There were only 6 of them, counting me. Of course, I thought I wasn't included, because I'd only been to the temple for a short time. It was really new. But when he hung up the phone, the temple president turned to me, Parmaswari turned to me and said, "Do you want to come with us?" And in my mind, I had already decided. Every day that I've been here, their sole goal seems to be to go out in the street and distribute literature. And at a drop of a hat, they're leaving all this to go off and see somebody. I didn't know who they were talking about. But if they're ready to give up what seemed to be their purpose in life, at a moment's notice, this must be some extraordinary person. So I should go and find out about this person. So I got in the car with them. They drove. When one devotee got tired, he was replaced by another, and he continued driving. 1,000 miles later, we arrived in Vancouver. Walked into the temple, headed to where Mahaprasadam was stored, sat down, ate, washed up, went to see the deities, got back in the car, and started driving again. And we were joined by another car, actually 3 more cars, from the devotees in Vancouver. We drove on. And this was repeated in Seattle, which is only like 2 hours later, and joined by cars from there. And then we proceeded south to Portland, Oregon, which is near Eugene, not very far away. There we were joined by devotees that came from all along the west coast of Canada and the United States. There was even devotees there from the center part of the United States, and a few devotees from the East Coast. And there were a few devotees there from South America. Prabhupada hadn't arrived yet. He was coming by airplane. At that time, the passenger from the airline would come down off the plane, down the ramp, onto the tarmac, where he would be greeted by those he would come to see. So when Prabhupada walked down that escalator, somehow or other, I found myself right at the foot of that ramp. All the other devotees, even the bigger devotees, were all behind me. I was the first one in the line. I didn't plan that, it just happened. And in my hand there was a rose. And I looked at it, I looked at Prabhupada, he smiled, I looked at the rose, looked back at him, and automatically I handed it to him. And he took it in his hand, he smelled it, held it in both hands, smiled at me again, and walked on to the next person, where he received a garland. Actually, he received many garlands. And then he got in a car and went to Eugene. And the devotees also got in a vehicle, followed him to Eugene. When he got out of the vehicle, he went into a building and the class was given. Of course, at that time, I wasn't at the front that time, because the other devotees that were there were very enthusiastic, and I ended up standing in the hallway trying to look over a devotee who was taller than me, around his shoulder, and there was somebody behind pushing me trying to get in to see also. And I heard him speaking. It wasn't really foreign to me, because when I was in technical school, the professor, or the person in charge of the technical department, he was Pakistani. His accent was very similar to Prabhupada's, so it was easy for me to understand what he was saying, no difficulty at all. Because for 3 years, every day of school, I heard this voice. Same kind of speech. Very clear, without a doubt. The next time I saw Srila Prabhupada was, I can't remember if it was a year later or 2 years later. I think it was 2 years later. This first time was on June 5th, 1972, and the second time was during Rath Yatra in San Francisco in 1974. In 1974, all of Prabhupada's sannyasis were present, and I had helped prepare the quarters that he stayed in San Francisco. We were also getting ready for Rath Yatra, so I also helped with the Ratha cart. I actually didn't really help with the Ratha cart. I just walked in. Jayananda said, "Do you know how to use a hammer?" I said, "Yes," and he handed it to me. He gave me some nails. So then I hammered where he said hammer. That's Krishna conscious. Superior says do this, you do this. You don't really question. Of course, if you have some previous activity, you can say, okay, I can't do that right now, maybe later, when time permits, depending upon the ordinance. So that was my initial meeting of Srila Prabhupada. So when in San Francisco, I was asked to make halava for the deities. I did this, and somehow or other, before Prabhupada tasted it, one of the sannyasis got some of that halava that I made, and as soon as his tongue tasted it, he became extremely angry, and I received a very severe tongue lashing from this sannyasi. And he was supported by some senior grahastas and some other devotees, because what I had done is that when I was cooking, I said, "Where's the sugar?" And the devotee whose kitchen I was cooking in says, "It's over there in that bin." And it was the bin furthest away. He was pointing in that direction, but the two bins were next to each other. One was salt, one was sugar. I gave the one with sugar, thinking it was salt. Yeah? This was my fault, because I wasn't careful enough to perceive the difference between the two, because someone that's cooked recognizes this is sweet and this is salty. I didn't recognize, and neither did I ask, just to make sure. I didn't do either of those. This was my fault. And I felt greatly embarrassed because of this situation. Prabhupada heard about it, but he didn't really say anything. But my temple president heard about it also, and he came, and after the sannyasis cleared out of his way, he came and he said, "Why did you do this terrible thing? Give the deities salt instead of sugar. Why did you do this?" And I grabbed my Brahmin thread, I took it off, and I handed it to the temple president. I said, "I don't want to be a Brahmin anymore." And he says, "I can't take that. Prabhupada gave you that. Take it back. It's not yours to give away." Now Prabhupada heard about this incident with salt halwa. And he passed it off as insignificant, of no importance at all. My name, Rohit, has also some bearing on this. Because one definition is that because Harishchandra had been risen into the spiritual, or into the heavenly planets, and had tasted of the cup of immortality and had become proud at the moment of tasting of immortality, at this same moment,